Hey guys, Manfree here. I saw this new Camelot Unchained trailer and I'm super excited about it. I have been following the game since the Kickstarter and I just want to talk about it a little bit more. I know that there's a lot of people online that are not happy about it. I totally get that. I'm totally supportive. I'll go through some of those points just so that people understand where I'm coming from, and let's just jump in. So first thing I just want to talk about is I did back Camelot. I said that earlier. I spent $500 on it. I was in the military. I played Dark Age of Camelot my whole life, and I thought it was great. I wanted to support the project. I didn't ask for a refund because I still want to play it when it comes out. Do you have any business interests in CU? No, I don't have any business interests whatsoever. I did buy some pizza for them at one point, but that's just me trying to be helpful and a nice guy. So no harm, no foul there, I don't think. Do I have any experience? Yeah, I have about 10 years of computer and software implementation experience. I've worked with different projects for cities and local governments that have budgets in the billions of dollars, the projects in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions, depending on the time series that we're talking about. Did a bunch of data analysis and behind the scenes work with executives to figure out what they want, visualizations, things like that. I don't hate the game, kind of mentioned that as well. And then I do understand that people are really unhappy about this, and I think that's fair. I think that we have to approach people where they are. If you requested a refund and you haven't gotten that, I don't have any reason why you shouldn't get that. I would probably be irritated too if I was at the point where I was requesting the refund. So that's fair. I also understand where people are coming from with Ragnarok. If you feel like Ragnarok is pulling away the resources from Camelot Unchained, then you're going to be justifiably irritated. So I think I understand that. Going forward, wanted to do a little bit of an icebreaker. I did a quick and dirty analysis of where your money would have gone in the stock market or in Bitcoin if you had invested there instead of giving it to Mark Jacobs. So for me, for example, I did 500. If I put that in Bitcoin around the same time, I would have $500,000. So that's definitely not a Camelot Unchained, but it does bring up a fun point. If everyone that donated to Mark Jacobs at the time had put their money into Bitcoin, $2 million, and then we have this kind of return, do you think you could build an MMO for hundreds of millions or more money? Maybe. So it's a thought. Anyway, just thought that was a cute one. So moving on, I want to walk through the video and just talk about some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like. First off, I thought the lighting was pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of these torches. I think it's too washed out, or the contrast is kind of off. Like, it's dark and then very localized light. But when the sunbeams hit these arches on the top, I really like that. I think that looks great. And overall, I would say the lighting looks pretty good. So not a bad shot. We kind of pan out from this first area. This was one of my biggest concerns with the video. It had, standard video editing issues. The FPS was low, and then especially in the foreground, whenever someone was running around, it seems like the FPS drops to 15 or 20, maybe less, I'm not sure. But it looks blocky and kind of rough. This issue, though, it's standard in certain games like Skyrim from the early 2010s. When you pan towards an object or you move towards the object, it will teleport into space. I think this is really bad from a verisimilitude or immersion standpoint. You feel like you're not playing a game anymore. You get teleported around, things are moving around. You're not in the world. You're very reticent of the fact that you're in a simulation, basically. I'm not a huge fan. Wish they had not shown this, and I hope they fix it. Quick piece, I noticed that they had some mining in this shot here. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the entrance to a bridge or the depths or some other area, but I thought the ore was cool. I haven't seen anything. This is probably pretty standard these days. People were like, it's an ore. You can interact with this object in the game. Fair enough, but I think it's positive. It's the first thing that I've seen like this. A couple of the objects I thought were really cool. They had different animals, zombies, elemental creatures. So these have their own animations. I didn't see a lot of aggro and how that kind of worked, so that'll be interesting. So going farther on into the video, we have these points of interest, and then this scene, I think, highlights a lot of the issues that people have. I don't have it highlighted in the bottom, but there's this desync button that's pinging on the lower right-hand corner of the screen in certain scenes. You have this beta 1 do not stream and distribute on the upper right. You have this lower left section where one of the players or developers is using a teleportation command, which nothing wrong with that, but all of these small things combined, and then you shoot to the middle where his model is clipping through this rock. I think a lot of people were really put off by this. It in general doesn't seem extremely professional to me, and I don't think that I personally have a problem with it as long as it's communicated in a certain way, but the way the video was communicated was as though it's a kind of trailer or a rebirth trailer. It just didn't give it a really clean feeling, and hopefully those feelings are going into the development of the game, but you know, that you would assume that those things would be evident when you're creating such a short trailer. One other thing that I'll point out is quickly the UI looks like HP and then energy or some kind of other mana type resource. And then these points of interest, they are scattered throughout the area. Those are cool. We'll talk about those a little bit more later on in the video. I took from this scene and then a couple of other ones the icons. I really like these. They don't have that AI generated feel where there's not a lot of consistency between what's being made, and it's nice to see actual artists creating things. Happy to see this. I think the icons look super cool. Hopefully the gameplay matches some of the impact that we see here. Very like strong looking things. Go on to the next scene. He's down to the rock. He's not clipping through the rock. This is great because he's in motion. I noticed a couple of different icons that populate over maybe guards or areas of interest. That was kind of cool. I didn't notice it the first time I watched the video, so maybe you missed it as well. Also, I like that the HP bars populate such a far distance away. One thing in WoW Classic that I really dislike is how close you have to be to get those bars to populate. It's a nice feature. You see a few more of these icons that pop up in the middle of the gate. And then we also get our first shot of the different buffs under the person's UI model. Going to the next scene, we have a large number of buffs now. So I think this is really good from a system standpoint. It means that they're at least testing these different buffs and how they interact with the characters, what they can do, what they can't do. I think it means that there's some development going on top of all the other things. I think from a project standpoint it's pretty good, but I want to know what the systems are. I want to know how many different crafting options we have, how many different gathering options we have, those kinds of things. Also, one thing that we notice here is that the selection that he's made is looks like a Midgardian or a Nordic selection because it's ice, so the different models will populate with that based on what's selected. And we also notice there's some more of these areas that have icons on them. I'm not sure if you can set up ballista here or some other situation like that. We get farther on, we notice a couple of interesting things in this shot that we haven't seen before. There are items on the ground, so skeletons or bones scattered across this area. That's probably just cosmetic, but we have this big brown bag. I'm not sure what that's for. Is that a callback to the grab bag that they had in Dark Age of Camelot, or is it a treasure chest or something like that? Kind of engaging, kind of interesting. It melds in a little bit, so I don't think I noticed it the first time, but it's interesting. Also, these spell effects are these buffs. I did try to look at them a little bit closer. The general icons seem to be the same. This kind of F, A, X, and then T model is more or less the same for each of these. It is slightly different, but I think overall it's similar. I don't think that there's a different buff. It could be the case, but this makes me think that this is probably just a buff and not as close to chamber storing like Warlocks had in Dark Age of Camelot. We get on two things on this scene that I noticed. One is the speed icon. This looks like some kind of indication of acceleration or velocity. And then there's also another area that you can mine from. This is these little yellow icons seem to populate above these resource nodes. So I thought this one was interesting because it doesn't really look like a mine. Are there multiple mines sitting on this area, or is this some kind of other object that you can gather from, like water or some other situation like that? Quickly, I wanted to run through some of the spell effects that I thought were interesting. I think these are cool. If these are just a small slice of what we saw, and then I didn't play it, but in the video you can hear some of the spell effects while the battles are going on. I thought they were great. I was really engaged by those and really happy with them. I know that these spell effects in isolation in this video with a low FPS and other things don't have the same, like, this is not the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, for sure. This is not Final Fantasy 20 level graphics. Some people would make jokes it's not Final. It's like more like Final Fantasy 10 graphics. Hopefully those can be increased. I know one thing that I enjoyed during my time playing Dark Age of Camelot was buying a new graphics card and getting to see the water reflect. I know that the teams will be interested in doing that if the game can be successful enough to maintain subs. They have fishing. I think this is great. My wife will love this. I will love fishing with my wife. I think, again, I talked about it a little bit, but any kind of professions like this that you can add into the game, people will always want to go in and do everything, but if you can add a number of tasks that require people to come together as a community to be guild leaders and coordinate these resources, I think is a positive thing. We talked about the points of interest that shoot up those big beams of light. It seems like they're just standard channeling situations. So you just go up to the object, you channel it for some n number of time, and then you capture it for your faction. We don't know what the impacts of those are. Are they relics? Are there bonuses for each of the different objects that you channel? Not sure, but it'll be interesting. It looks like the animations are in. It's kind of a wait and see. This next scene is the first time that we see multiple buffs, which seem to be the same kind. I'm not 100% sure if that's an oversight or there's different buffs. Not 100% sure why you would be able to buff yourself with the same thing multiple times. We also see the first debuff, so he has this other character selected, and we can see that second debuff, and then also a little icon that denotes that this character has the other one selected. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of like the big arrow, but I am also super dyslexic sometimes. It'll be very interesting. We get a little farther in, and then we get the idea of more of the debuffs, and then we can see that when the character is hit, it has a population of the damage and the damage type, but then also a debuff it looks like he receives with that same damage. So not sure if we need to populate this twice. Maybe don't call the number in both situations. Not 100% sure, but definitely interesting. Shows that they're getting farther along. Also, you can see that they're channeling a specific attack that populates with this Shadow Blade damage. I think they probably took this one before they channeled the Shadow Cleave, and then it gave them some kind of shadow buff. Kind of interesting. So we know that we're seeing electrical damage. We saw what looked to be some kind of physical ailment or a natural ailment, and then a shadow. So some depth going on in the systems. I think that's positive. I would like to see more of the economic side of things. And then also I'm noticing here he has this Nordic character selected, but then he also has this control point selected. So a little bit of a question on, hey, why are we channeling the control point? Why can you select multiple objects at the same time? Is that only because one is a NPC and then the other one is a character or an object? That kind of thing. Would love to ask that question more. A few scenes later, we see that there's two NPCs or two models with different sizes. So I think these two on the left are NPCs, and then the character on the right is a normal character. This is something in a lot of games where the guards are bigger. It's an indication to the player that that's not a normal person. They might just attack you nonstop. And then finally, we get to the end here. We have this big, grandiose battle. I actually really liked this. I thought that all of the spell effects, The way it was shot together was great. It was a good idea to do this. I'm not a huge fan with how it looks in the background. The FPS is low. Some of the textures in this shot are not good. Like, why is the road so low polygon? That's just something that we maybe need to fix going forward. There's this little area to teleport. So yeah, that's basically the video. I thought that there was a lot of positive there. There's a lot of questions. It really gets me engaged and unfortunately hyped. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not hyped. I've been waiting for this 10 or 12 years. Probably pretty smart. But if the game actually comes out later this year, or at least an early access version comes out later this year, that will be a positive thing. I think if they can start building community, if the game is fun, engaging gameplay, and the systems are robust so that people can invest time, accumulate resources, build castles or delve dungeons to gather different things, make their character stronger, get the equivalent of realm points or whatever the PvP incentive is going to be. Hopefully that's not just gear, because I'm not a huge fan of that in Dark Age or in WoW. You just get gear that continuously updates. Terrible system in my mind. Not a huge fan of that. Some people will argue with that. That's fine. Again, some of the issues: the rubber banding, the low FPS, the phasing terrain, and then also the low poly assets and spell textures. In certain instances, I think that those are going to be local issues. It's going to depend on the machine that's being used, and then you can update that as you go. It's also something that you can update after the game is released. I think there's give and take there. I'm actually less irritated by this trailer than most of everything else. So I think there's a lot of positive that can come of it. I would love to know what anybody else thinks. I'll be posting this video probably around the different sources, so Reddit and the other places. I'm really not interested in making money or anything like that from this video, so don't feel like, I'm here to monetize it in any way. I just wanted to get some conversation going around it from a neutral third party that's excited. And I hope the game is successful. Thanks for watching. Bye.